Before I begin, feel free to pause at any time to read through the slides before continuing. All training plans will follow these 8 principles of training. I am not going to go through all of them in detail. However, I will touch on the principles that are most relevant in our case. Before I continue, I would like you guys to briefly read through all of the 8 principles. The first principle we will be talking about is specificity. Don't worry if you are unclear of the slide, as we will be breaking it down together. Specificity talks about the type of training we should be doing for the desired outcome. For instance, lifting heavy weights in the gym has a negligible effect on your 2.4 timing. This is because the energy system and muscle fiber types required are different for both events. Thus, when formulating a training plan, we have to ensure that the type of training we do is similar to the event we will be tested on. This brings me to the second and third principles, which are adaptation and progression. These two principles are part of what we can describe as progressive overload, which is the main thing I want to talk about today. Adaptation basically refers to your body's ability to adapt to different training stimuli. For instance, if you run 10 kilometers every day, your body will soon adapt to running 10 kilometers per day, and over time, you will notice that your timings will improve. This works for every aspect of physical activity, such as strength, endurance, and flexibility. As you can see with this simple chart above, the line represents our fitness. When stimulated with training, the body becomes fatigued. 24 to 48 hours after training, the body recovers and overcompensates to achieve a higher performance level. This is what adaptation is all about. With that said, this does not mean that doing 1 push-up a day will make you stronger. This is because when the training load is inadequate, compensation will not be enough. On the other hand, 1,000 push-ups a day is also not a good idea as overtraining kicks in, which results in a drop in performance as well. The best case scenario is to strike a balance between training load and recovery in order to maximize performance. However, notice how over time the overcompensation line returns back to our baseline fitness. This is where we will discuss about progression. After the overcompensation phase, we have to continue loading the body in order to progress, forcing our bodies to continually adapt to greater training loads. This is illustrated in the chart shown on the screen. Thus, we now know that progressive overload is basically increasing the training stimulus periodically in order to improve our fitness. There are many ways to achieve progressive overload. The easiest way, now that we are all under the circuit breaker, would be to either increase the volume or frequency of training. For example, during the first week of training, I did 3 sets of 20 sit-ups on days 1, 3, and 5 of the week. For my second week, I can choose to either do 3 sets of 25 sit-ups on the same days, or I could choose to do 3 sets of 20 sit-ups but on days 1, 3, 5, and 7, adding 1 extra day of work. This is to ensure that our bodies are constantly stimulated by our training to avoid plateauing, which is when our body no longer reacts well to our training stimulus. This next slide touches on 3 principles, which are recovery, variation, and reversibility. Feel free to pause and read through the slide. Alright, with that said, we are done with the principles of training. Next, we will briefly touch on warm-up routines. A basic rule of thumb would be to engage in dynamic warm-ups before any physical activity. Dynamic warm-ups are anything which consists of active movement of your body through its complete range of motion in a controlled manner. A dynamic warm-up should always be relevant to the physical activity you are about to do. For instance, if you are engaging in an intense upper body workout session, the warm-up should consist of mostly upper body movements such as arm circles or scapular push-ups. Personally, I suggest going through a full body warm-up with emphasis on, number 1, type of activity, and number 2, increasing your heart rate. Benefits of a dynamic warm-up include increase in core and muscle temperature, which makes your muscles more pliable. Also, it stimulates the nervous system to prepare your body for exercise. With this being said, let's move on to the warm-up video.
I'm drowning, like I'm running out of air. Why do I feel like I'm falling when I'm nowhere near the edge? Just let me know, can you be the one to hold and not let me go? I need to know, could you be the one to call when I lose control?
I need your love. 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 I need your love.
Could you be the one to call when I lose control? When I lose control. 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 Could you be the one to call when I lose control? I know I can be destructive, and I can change the atmosphere. All I ask from you is patience, some patience, some patience. Just let me know, can you be the one to hold and not let me go? I need to know, could you be the one to go when I lose control? When I lose control. 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 Could you be the one?
Alright, we are done. Take note that after your training session, a static cooldown should be done to return your biological system back to its resting state. I hope this guide has taught all of you about training principles and how to warm up or cool down. See you all back at school.